Barrister Rotimi Ogunyemi is an information and communications attorney. He is the chairman of the ICT Committee section on Business Law, Nigeria Bar Association. He is also a pastor.
Fantastic. I mean, first of all, I must say that it's an honor to be here. Thanking God first for our lives and sparing all of us, and particularly thanking him for the miracle of technology. So I'm right here beaming from Lagos, and I can see that a whole lot is happening there, a lot of education, a lot of fun, and a lot of insightful learning. So yes, thank you again. And right, a little bit about myself. So perhaps you want me to share about my growing up days or a bit of what I'm doing currently.
Okay.
So maybe I would start with what I'm doing currently. So I am Rotimi Ogunyemi. I am a lawyer, particularly a technology lawyer. I run a technology law practice in Lagos, and at the same time, I pastor a church, what you would call full-time. So that's me in a nutshell. I mean, except you want me to then go into a bit more details as to my growing up and all of that.
Okay, wow. I would just appreciate God on behalf of myself, Okay, so sir, we've heard the things you are into, but what actually informed your choice of career, your profession, so to say? We know you are in the law profession. Why law? Why did you decide to study law? Or why are you a barrister? Why did you decide to settle for being a lawyer?
Thank you very much, Noel. That's a fantastic question. And, so I was born in the late 80s, the later part of the late 70s, all right? And it may surprise you, or it may not surprise you to know that for anyone born in the late 70s who grew up in the 80s and the 90s, your greatest influence for choice of career were your parents, and then to some degree, society, right? So it was no different for me. I was actually born into a family where my dad was a lawyer, he's a lawyer, all right? And so in those days, the sight of a lawyer dressed in their whites, their bibs, their jackets, their gown was everything, all right? So every time I saw my dad dress up for court, I felt that that's the picture of what I wanted to be. And the truth was, I saw it as a thing of pride. I looked forward to the times my dad would drop us in school while he's dressed up as a lawyer. I wanted my friends to know that my dad is a lawyer. I mean, like I said, it was just a thing of awesome pride, And so without a doubt, that shaped my choice for wanting to become a lawyer. But there's more. That was the good side. There was the bad side. Very early in my childhood, I realized that my home environment was not exactly what you would call normal. All right. By that, I mean, I noticed that there was tension in my home, a lot of fighting, a lot of raised voices, a lot of things were going on to my parents and all that. Not many people would have thought this was a great environment. And so what that did was it left some imprints on my mind. My dad was extremely strict. I dare say he was unapproachable, right? And unfortunately, things grew from from bad to worse. The finances in our home at some point took a nosedive. And so when I was approaching my teenage years, just like you all in the camp, I realized that my home was that home where there was no television. I mean, things were that bad. Back then, there was what you call the video players. We didn't have any of those. So what happened was that when we got to school and we have our friends talking about television programs and things going on, we had nothing to say. I had nothing to say. So I became very quiet. I became very reserved. I was introspective. I was withdrawn. All right. Basically, I kind of withdrew into a shell. I processed everything eternally. Yes, I mean, I had my brothers at home, but whenever my dad was around, nobody talked. We all spoke in hushed tone. All right. So that was the bad part. But again, some good came out of that bad, in that because of that home environment, I became very studious. All right. My escape from everything that was going on around me at home were books. I started to read. I mean, that was all I knew to do. Thankfully, my mom noticed my love, for books. And so she got me books, usually secondhand books. And so I read everything. I read everything and anything. So you hear people say that, oh, to become a lawyer, you need to be loud, you need to be aggressive, you need to be argumentative. That may be true, but for me, that wasn't it. I was quiet and I was reflective. But that actually shaped me to wanting to become a lawyer. Living in a home without home entertainment, everything I did was to read, all right? And this started to reflect in my grades as well. Particularly in my secondary school, I started to top my class. By the time I took the junior secondary exams, my grades were so good that by default, I was put in the science class. And that was the reasoning at the time. The reasoning was, if you were that good, you had to be in the sciences. And so by default, that meant it was the dullards that went to the arts and the commercial classes. But because I had said I had wanted to become a lawyer, by that time, my dad was already saying I will become a lawyer. I changed from the science class to the arts class. Now, that was unheard of, all right? Nobody changed from science to arts. I was perhaps the first person ever, right? But even in the art class, I was still topping my class, but not only in the art subjects like literature, history, and government, but also in the sciences, in subjects like biology, even in mathematics. So I realized very quickly that I was an outlier. All right. Most people turned to law because they wanted to escape from maths. My story, I loved maths, but I also loved the arts. I loved history. I loved literature. I loved government, right? And so that shaped my journey, and I got into the university and then qualified as a lawyer. So that was my story, and that was my path. Back then in the days, you were a lawyer, a doctor, or an engineer. Everything else was nothing. So, Noel, thank you for that question. That was my journey, right? But away from the foundation that my parents exposed us to, I consciously took the step of becoming a follower of Jesus when I was in the secondary school, right? This was when I intentionally looked at all of the options, and I said, you know what? I want to be a follower of Jesus. I want to be a Christian. And so I continued on that path, even when I got into the university. Now, in the university, my Christian work, I did not particularly match it with my study of law. But one thing was this: I pursued God and the things of God all through my college years. That's all through my university years. Now, at that time, I joined a fellowship on campus, right? And these were a group of young people, a lot of us who were like me. We wanted to know more of God. We wanted to share experiences with God. And then we also wanted to have a great life together. And so this fellowship on campus, part of what we did was we sought unconventional ways to share the gospel. And unconventional ways meant we share the gospel through things like dance. And so if some of you have heard about the Spirit of David, right? It started on that campus. Through Christian concerts, we did things like Jam, Jesus and Me, where we had hip hop, rap, and all of that. So what we were doing then on campus was we wanted to reach an audience that most Christians turned their noses on. All right. And these were the club guys. These were the cult guys, right? Now, the way this impacted on my career was that at that time, even though I did not understand it, I realized that the experiences I had was shaping me to know that whatever platform I had, I could use it to bring hope, to bring healing, and to bring restoration to others, right? So let me mention two things that happened in the university that impacted my career. I realized in my second year, now, like I mentioned, I was studying law in the university to become a lawyer. But in my second year, or maybe it was the third year, we took a course called Logic, Introduction to Logic. And I realized that my best score in the university came from that course. In my first semester and in my second semester, I scored solid grades in the 90s, right? And if you know anything about logic, this is all about reasoning, and it has mathematics at its roots. And logic is actually the foundation to computer science. So that already told me that, wow, my strength was actually more in the sciences than even in the arts. So that was the first thing. By my final year in the university, I fell in love with computers. And that also happened as a result of adversity. All right, in my final years, I did not have funds to produce my project. So I had to go to the room of a friend who had a computer to type out my project every night, right? And so I would type out the letters one after the other. But what that did was I fell in love with computers, such that by the time I got to law school, I was already teaching myself to code. I was writing that language, HTML, which is a foundational web development computer language, by the time I was in law school. All right. So a mixture of all of that shaped my path to becoming a technology lawyer today. So again, my spiritual journey, together with the adversity of my childhood, shaped my career path into becoming a tech lawyer. So I believe the question is, I should share a bit about the opportunities in my industry, right? And how an aspiring person can prepare. Is that it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fantastic. Now, to every young person in the room, before I go into the details of the opportunities in this industry, which is law and specifically technology law, I want to say a bit about all of you listening to me, all right? Now, the truth is this, for all of you, there are certain abilities, talents, and gifts that God has placed in you, all right? And you may not know it for sure right now, but the truth is your experiences, the way you live, your home environment, your parents, everything that happened around you will actually steer you in the direction of what these giftings that God has placed in you are. So like I mentioned, I said to you early on that I was a very quiet person, all right? I was introspective. So I knew that I had the gift of concentration, focus. I had the gift of a thinker. I was a studious person, all right? Now, I also knew that I had the gifts of technology. I had a natural dispensation to wanting to know how technology works. And so I'm saying that to you, that look around you, look at the things that come natural to you. Those are the things that kind of guide you to know where your future path and your future career lie. So other people would have said, oh, so now that you have a strength in the sciences, in maths, why don't you just go into technology and leave law? I realized, and this is where hearing from God comes through. In my final year in the university, while I was praying, I heard God say to me, I will prosper you in a strange land. So that was a word that I had even from my university days. So I knew that even though I was a lawyer, I was going to make incursion in a strange land, in a field that lawyers do not go, all right? So I am some 20 years a practicing lawyer, but I can tell you with all humility today that if you mention 3 lawyers in the technology law space, my name would come up. I happen to be one of the pioneers of technology law in Nigeria. What are the opportunities in this space? I'm sure all of you have heard the future is digital. That's what we are doing now. There used to be a time where what we are doing now was unheard of. But now you can have a speaker talk to you from Lagos while you're at Ibadan, or from the US while you're in Lagos, because of technology. Everywhere you look, you see the infusion of technology, not just in entertainment, not just in information, but in every area of our lives. Technology has infused it. So when I was growing up, the area of law that was said to be lucrative was what you call oil and gas, all right? So that is an opportunity in law. But if you go into law with a knowledge that technology is the thing and you specialize in that field, there are very few people there. So that takes me to my next point, which is, how do you build skills? How do you build competencies in this area? The first thing is, beyond seeing technology as an entertainment tool, as just Netflix and gaming, all right, as just social media, as just a place where you go and you slay, you actually devote your time to understanding how technology works. Now, if you are going to be a voice in the legal industry where technology is concerned, you then need to position yourself as a trusted advisor in this space of technology. How does technology interplay with law and business? Listen, guys, there's only one way to do everything I've just said. That is to study. Malcolm Gladwell, a Canadian writer, he proposed what you call the 10,000 hour rule, that the way you become good and the way you become an expert in anything is to devote at least 10,000 hours of your life to such things. So what that means for you is where everybody else is binge watching Netflix, watching all the series on Netflix, and there's nothing wrong with having entertainment in your life. You will have to devote time to studying. You will have to devote time to listening to educational podcasts, to self-development, to surrounding yourself with books, all right? That is the way you stand out. If you want to become a lawyer who the world looks up to, you will devote time and you will devote attention. There is no two ways to it. There is no shortcut to it. That's the way you become a voice. So in a nutshell, what I have said is this: there is an opportunity in the legal industry, particularly in the technology law space, all right, for those who are discerning, and especially for your generation. You are the digital natives, all right? You are that generation for whom technology comes as default. So you have an advantage. Now, let me say this finally. I've only used technology law as an example. That may not be your pathway, but I'm suggesting to you that if you can see technology as a leverage and as an enabler for whatever industry you are aspiring to and you are going into, whether it's medicine, whether it's business, whether it's project management, whether it's engineering, if you can add technology to whatever it is you are doing, I hope you can hear me now, right? That will stand you out, and that will make you a voice in whatever space you or whatever career you intend to pursue. So that, in a nutshell and in summary, is what I have said so far. Thank you very much, Noel. Now, first of all, we live in a post-Christian culture. For the young ones in the room, what do I mean? When we were growing up, being a Christian actually came with certain things. If you were in the work environment and you were known to be a Christian, you were actually by default ascribed certain values. That means, oh, this person is a Christian, he or she will not lie. He or she will not cheat. He or she will not cut corners, all right? Because of the actions or the inactions of, I wouldn't say a few, of quite a number of people who identify quotes and unquote as Christians, we have been mislabeled and we as Christians have been misjudged. So in today's professional world and today's professional space, if you go into the boardroom or you go into high office with that label of I am a Christian, you are actually undercutting yourself, all right, sadly. And that is what you are on this camp to imbibe, which is to be the salt of the earth and to be the light of the world. But I do not do that by going into those rooms, into that professional space to say, you know what, I'm a Christian. No, I do it not just by what I say, but by what I do. So what do? I choose to be excellent. I choose to be a voice, a trusted voice in my industry. I choose to be that person where law and technology is being discussed, my name will be mentioned. All right? I work to become the best in my profession and in this area of specialization. And by the time I speak about what is going on in the industry, I was talking about technology, but someone saw Jesus in that. That is the way I have learned to make my light shine and to be a model of who a Christian is in the marketplace. Someone says, "Sir, are you a pastor?" Of course, I will not deny my calling. I am a pastor. I actually pastor a church. And I say, yes, I am. And if you would give me an opportunity to tell you more, we can take this conversation off the record, and I will tell you what informs what I do. It's my love for Jesus, the ethics that I have imbibed as a Christian that manifest in what I do in the professional space. How can a believer be an example for Christians in their industry? Fantastic question, Noel, and that's just me. I'm going to delve a bit deeper from what I just said. So maybe to all of my young people in the house, perhaps you have been soaking in everything I have said and you have learned from my story, all right? But maybe this is the time where you might need to write, because I'm going to answer these questions by saying 4 things. And within those 4 things will be some life-changing insights for you. How can a believer be an example of a Christian in their industry, regardless of the industry? All right. Now, I will take it that for you teenagers today, your current industry is schooling, education. All right. So the things I want to say does not just apply when you have gone through the career path and you have qualified in whatever endeavor you want to do. So number 1 thing is this is a life lesson, is that to be an example, to be salt and light, you must learn to value people. I'll say that again. You must learn to value people. Valuing people means you love people, all right? And that is everything Jesus said to us. And in fact, that is the summary of the entire Bible. Love God with all your heart and love other people as you love yourself. Value people, all right? Especially people that are different from you. People who do not look like you, people who are not as fortunate or as privileged as you. Respect people, honor people, value people, consider other people higher than yourself. Now, if you value people, you show love to people, you show kindness to people, that will stand you out. Do you know why? Because 9 out of 10 people do not do what I said just now. And so if you are that person who does everything I just said now, you will stand out. Number 2, all right? Having value people, look for ways, all right, to add value to people. Add value to people. That's different from valuing people. Valuing people is you love people, all right? But number 2 is you make it your life calling to add value to people. What does that mean? Choose to be a positive influence, all right? Now, the only way you can be a positive influence to people is if you yourself, you first of all add value to yourself, because you can only give what you have, all right? Now, there are ways to add value to yourself. The number 1 way is this. What are you consuming? What are you consuming? Do you spend all of your time on Netflix or scrolling on Instagram? Or do you read? Do you listen to enriching educational resource? Even when you are on social media, are you exposed to the right kind of influences, right? What are you consuming? What are you attempting to do? Who are you associating with? Listen to me, young people. You right now, you are the average of the 5 closest people to you. Your life right now is the average of the 5 closest influences that you have. So add value to yourself. Seek out mentors. You will find a lot of them on this camp. Ask questions. Find out how they think. What do they read? All right? That will put you in a position where you are able to add value to people. You are able to solve problems. All right? And hear me when I say this, regardless of what industry you aspire to go into, everywhere you find people complaining today, that's an opportunity for you to solve a problem. Whether it's in government, you hear everybody complaining about government, about politics. That is an area for you to solve a problem. Whether it's in business, whether it's in education, whether it's in technology, whether it's even in entertainment, in sports, in media, every area, look for ways to add value. So I've said 2 things. You value people, 1. 2, you add value to people. Number three, you see, it's one thing to value people. It's another thing to add value to people, but it's greater still if you live those values. You live good values. That means you don't just talk about good things, but your life actually demonstrates it. And the only thing I would say about this is that you go look at the fruit of the Spirit. Galatians 5:22 to 23. And the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Does your life exhibit all of this? That is what would attract you to people. Even in the business world, are you a loving person? Are you a peaceful person? Are you a kind person? Are you a gentle person? If your life exhibits this fruit, people will be gravitated to you. They will bring problems to you. Listen, you want to be successful. The only way you become successful is by solving problems. But how do you solve problems if you do not connect with people? And the only way you connect with people is by living the fruit of God's Spirit. Finally, you do not just value people. You do not just add value to people. You do not just live these good values, but you also share these good values. What does that mean? Everything I just said now, go and say it to somebody else. Go and demonstrate it to somebody else. This is what success means, all right? You've heard so many things about what success is. Make money, have a good house, marry a good person. All those things are components of success. But real success is when you become everything God has made you and called you to be, and you help other people to become that as well. So you share these things that you have learned here. These ways are the only way you become an example for Christians in your space, in your industry, in your home, and in your lives. Thank you very much. This experience on the camp will shape your future for years to come. In fact, forever. All right? There are things I have said here today that I wished that someone said them to me when I was your age. All right? Now, notwithstanding that that did not happen, God has a way, right, of taking even all the bad things that happen in our lives, stitch them together and still work them together for good. All right. And so, even though God has written all the chapters of our lives ahead of us, we also add our own chapters, whether by mistakes or by omission and all. But God still writes the final chapters. That's the story of my life. Despite my less than exciting childhood, despite the things that did not work well, God took every single piece and pieces, worked them together for good. And the example I always use is for those of you who bake. If you take all the ingredients of baking a cake and you kind of consume those ingredients independently of each other, they do not taste well. If you take flour and put flour in your mouth, you'll go, ew, this is not great. If you take just butter, put it in your mouth, it's not exactly great. And every ingredient you use, maybe it's only sugar that you could say is great, right? But when you take all those ingredients, put them in a receptacle and mix them together, then it becomes great. That's what God is starting to do even in your lives as teenagers. He's taking all of your experiences, all that you are being exposed to, including at this camp, stitching all of it together to write a great story. So do not miss the moments. Do not to soak in all the insights. Do not fail to identify those people that you can see as models. And more importantly, do not fail, right, to pursue a deeper experience and work with God. I have no doubts that your lives will become testimonies, that your light will shine before men, that they will see your good work and glorify your Father in heaven. Thank you very much, and God bless you.